I think that we program ourselves when we're operating a business to think about our economic limitations as our limitations for creativity and success. If I only had more money, I would make my business succeed. I would do this, I would do that, I could pay for this. And I can't tell you how untrue that is because I've been part of an organization or two in my life that was very well funded, and we spent money on everything, and we're able to create at the speed of light. And to be honest with you, it didn't help anything. Just made the business bigger. Maybe it opened the doorway to the possibility of more success, but it didn't guarantee success. On the other side of that, I can recall my creativity when in 1997 I had a skydiving mail order company and I was producing training films. It was the second training film that I was working on. It was about intermediate parachute canopy control skills, and it was a $75,000 production. My first production cost me $15,000, and there was quite a big of a jump. And I had absolutely no resources. I was living hand to mouth just to cover my expenses, let alone have money to produce a video that was costing me 6 times more or 7 times more than the previous video. Is that right? Is that the right math? Yeah. Okay. So I went to my dad. I was 27 years old. I said, "Dad, can I borrow some money?" And he said, "No, you're on your own." I was annoyed. I was pissed, and I could have caved in and folded and done nothing. And instead, what I did was I figured out a hustle. The hustle was that I had to get this video made. I had so much energy and passion for it. It was an obsession. And I wanted to accomplish this. So what I did was I figured out that I could pre-sell the videos. It was 1997. We were selling things on VHS. DVDs weren't even a thing yet. So my first video was quite successful. I ran an advertising campaign in a skydiving magazine, and the sales started coming in very quickly. I was doing enough sales in the very beginning to be able to keep people jumping out of airplanes and flying parachutes. And I had a producer that was helping me. We were doing helicopter cinematography because the producer was a helicopter pilot. I guess he saw it as a way of getting some helicopter flying time. Completely ridiculous production for what it was looking back. But I managed to get the video completed because I was forced to become creative. In the third video, I did the same thing by default, but the third video was going to cost me $120,000, and I had moved back to New York City, so my expenses were greater, and I had to pay rent, and so now I had to think of another way to get money, of obviously keep everything legal. So what I decided to do was get advertisers to advertise in my videos. Hallelujah. Now, the industry of skydiving is a very small industry, and people don't write big checks, especially when it comes to putting a commercial that they don't have into a skydiving video that didn't really have any data to support whether or not people were watching them, or if people were watching them, was there a way to convert people? So I had to make it really easy for a skydiving company to want to advertise with me. And so what I did was I let them give me their equipment, whatever they manufactured, whether it was a company that manufactured altimeters, companies that manufactured parachute containers, parachutes, helmets, automatic activation devices for the reserve parachute. None of you guys know what that is, but what I was able to do is to get 10, 12 advertisers in my videos, produce really cheesy but okay commercials for that time, put them into the videos, get some equipment, and generate, probably in that third video, I generated about $20,000 in advertising money, and that saved my ass during that production. And so the absence of resources are the reason I created my mail order equipment business, because I had all this equipment now that I had to cash in on. So I had to advertise equipment in my parachute training video sales in the magazines, and people were buying this stuff from me. They were, I would run an advertisement, buy, buy this $6,000 parachute, get my packing, my packing your parachute video, how to fly your canopy video, and how to deal with emergency procedures. Get those 3 videos for free when you buy your parachute system from me. No one else in the industry had that advantage because no one else produced those videos. So I gave people a reason to want to buy their equipment with me. I gave them some value. I would not have created that if someone just wrote me a blank check. I would have been stuck with the type of sales that I had prior to being desperate for cash. The point that I was trying to make is that an entrepreneur who needs money and who's willing to play within the rules and not break the law, obviously, Bernie Madoff style, an entrepreneur who needs cash to innovate and create the business is going to create more epic things out of the necessity for cash versus just being given a check by someone. That's my strong belief. Money can actually be a hindrance to our progress because money can cover up our mistakes, and money can let us live in the fantasy of an idea versus the reality, and money could prevent us from feeling the pain of doing something foolish because we pay our way out of it, which is perfectly acceptable. If you have endless stream of money, then why should you suffer over everything? Just do whatever you want and just pay for it. You're going to run out of money at some point. And so there has to be a balance between taking on too much money before you have a solid operation, a solid product, a solid business structure. Things have to be rolling in the right direction before you take on a big check and make things worse potentially. So with that being said, and that was really long. I'm sorry, that took me 7 minutes to get that out. I've never tried to express that before. With that being said, I would say that probably the most popular videos that are out there are to entrepreneurs who are trying to raise money, because no matter what, we see that as one of our big limitations. Where am I going to get money to do this? And so that's the holy grail, is who's going to fund this? What I saw in my company, Juice Press, was that when we had proof of concept in the year 2011, we started in 2010. The proof of concept was that there was always a crowd of people in and outside of the store. Newspapers and magazines were writing about us. Word of mouth was on the street. Everybody was talking about Juice Press. It really was a conversation piece at that time because juice cleansing and juice was a hot subject, not because of anything that I did, but it was just timing. I was in the right place at the right time. I had a great product. It was cool. It was fashionable. It was sexy. So people were talking about us. Because we had that, it was almost at one point in time, we were the attractive person at the prom. Everybody wanted to dance with us. I can't tell you how many people would come into the store and say, "You're the owner?" I'd say, "Yes." And say, "We love this. We should do this in Texas. I'll put up the money." Or somebody would be looking at the concept and say, "I'd like to buy your business." Nonsensical conversations. A lot of people would just want to impress me that they had money. Some people were actually very serious. I would see a particularly 25 to 45-year-old males standing in the store with their friends, taking notes, taking pictures, trying to figure out what we actually had going on, trying to crack the code. What they really were looking at was they were looking at the superficial part of the business. They were looking at the outside of the business and saying, if I take pictures of this, I'll actually understand what they have. And what we had at Juice Press was a lot of good execution and a shit ton of luck, because luck is really, really important. It's not a good thing to rely on luck completely, because obviously your luck might not come through and you can be shit out of luck. But certainly you could take all of the best actions in a business, the best location, the best staff, the best product, the best economy, and for some reason it fails. Something wasn't in the mix that made it work. And so what you would want to do is freeze frame that moment where something's not working, try to get a picture of the whole thing and say, what is it that's not working about this? It seems like we've done everything right. We've done it 8 times like this and it succeeded, but this time it's failing. Maybe it's the look of the store. Maybe it's the audience that's wrong. Even though there's foot traffic, it's the wrong traffic. Maybe our association with this other brand isn't quite right for the public. Maybe the staff isn't good. Maybe for this particular location, they don't like the color of our labels. Or maybe just you're shit out of luck. It just doesn't work. Sometimes there's no way to figure out why it's working. But when it's actually working, when it's working right, that's the time to be open to who is my partner, who is my investor, who's out there that can partner with me and amplify my concept. Taking on money from an investor to me is not any different than when you see someone attractive on the street and you walk up to them and you start talking to them and you're both showing a lot of interest with each other. In a very short period of time, you can figure out whether or not that person is the appropriate person for you to get intimate with. You know very quickly if a person is, for lack of a better term, healthy, available, present, capable of the type of relationship that you want. The question is do you listen or do you allow yourself to be seduced by the urges that are very powerful on us? And when we're looking at our investors, we sometimes would say love is blind. I'll say cash is blind when it comes to investors. When someone is there getting ready to write us a check and bail us out of our problems or create the steps that the ladder to the paradise we think we're going to by getting a check, it's very difficult to resist the temptation of wanting to pull the trigger. It's probably one of the most important skill sets that you will have to deal with when you're expanding your business and you're taking on investors, is really making sure that this investment group is right. Do they share your moral values? Do they have a passion for the product? Do they really care about your mission statement and what you're doing? Do they value you? How do you learn that? Well, I mean, you got to go on a lot of dates with them and you have to look at their track record. You have to have your eyes open. If you don't have experience, you have to know what questions to ask. And you have to know how to listen. Now, the school that my father came from was if my partner made me money and we didn't do anything illegal, it was a success. And that rubbed off on me, of course. I don't think that way today. I really think that anyone I partner with is going to be in my life for a number of years. They're going to be a person that I likely talk to on a Saturday when my children are inside eating breakfast and I slip out into the guest room to talk about a problem that we're having or to innovate something. They're a person that we're likely going to be facing challenging times together. They're a person that I really have to rely on, that they're working on themselves and that they have their own program for checking their feelings and apologizing if they do something that isn't necessarily skillful towards me. You don't take on investment from companies. Somewhere along the line, there's a person. There's a person that's responsible for writing the check. There's a person that's accountable to your performance as an entrepreneur and to helping the business grow. You really do have to think it through and decide whether or not your business model is something that will handle growth well, or will the product somehow be spoiled by becoming too large. I would say in certain types of businesses, not that I'm trying to be judgmental, it doesn't actually matter. You know, what is the difference if you're starting a tobacco company or a vaping company, whether or not your company scales well, because you have an adulterated product that can easily be tainted any way you need to taint it. You can pervert it into whatever you want, make it more addictive, make it more flavorful, package it differently. But really, in those types of products, what you're relying on is the nature of the corruption of those products. So those things scale really, really well. It's wholesome products, things of a perishable nature, things of a truly, truly wholesome nature that don't necessarily scale well. They're much more fussy. They spoil faster. They're harder to get. They're harder to manage. Less people want them, so that means you're going to have to really come up with clever ways to promote. It's very difficult to be a master entrepreneur of selling carrots and celery, if that's your business. So when you have a product that's a very high quality product, whether it's in the service business or a steakhouse or a juice bar, you really have to be honest with yourself and see if it scales well. And if you don't think it's going to scale well, then slow down your expansion and make sure that your vision is correct and tight. And if you feel that the only time to expand is now and you have to expand rapidly, then there's something likely wrong with your business model. A business other than technology usually doesn't have to rush to the finish line. Technology businesses, look, if I spent 11 years in my room trying to develop a POS system or a software for managing projects, by the time I launch it, the technology is over. There'll already be 1,000 people in the space, and the way that people think about the product is already going to be different. I'll be last to the dinner table. But products like the hotel business and service, the restaurant industry, another food and beverage business, is there really a rush to get something to marketplace, or is getting a good quality, unique, disruptive product more important? Getting the brand right, getting the delivery of the product right. Literally, what is the product going to be contained in? Is it in a retail store? Is it a package? What is the message behind the product? How will people discover this product? How will we get them positively addicted? Those are things that you really have to think about. If you're in a position where taking on cash is the only way you're going to keep the doors open, then I regret to say this, but since it's my recording, I can say it the way I want to say it, is if you're desperate for cash, you're more likely to cheapen yourself, prostitute yourself, diminish yourself, and sell your soul to a virtual devil. Not always. I just said you're more likely to. And I've seen that time and time again with my friends, just watching industry in New York, reading a lot about this kind of stuff, and of course, obviously, my own personal experience. Is there ever going to be a perfect partner out there? Absolutely not, because you're not a perfect partner. Either am I. But there's certainly partners that are more compatible. I will definitely say that the partners that I had at Juice Press were compatible with me at the time, and we definitely all outgrew each other and went in our own separate directions. And I think that overall, in the variety of businesses that I've been in, my partners helped me get to the next level. And so I'm 94% grateful. The parts in partnerships where I'm not grateful for are the parts that left either one of us with brain damage. By brain damage, what I mean is that it's one thing to have a partner that takes over your business and pushes you out if that's what happens. It's another thing to have a partner that is berating or intimidating or hostile, critical, abusive. That's never a positive thing. And that will definitely leave a scar. And so I think that it's very hard to tell early on whether a person will ever become like that, but it is something to really consider. And I don't really know how to tell you to avoid that, except to make sure that you have a life program, that you are maintaining your own mental health, regardless of the business, that you're doing your writing and your journaling and your therapy and your meditation and your yoga and your running. And if you're a parent, you're being a good parent. Make sure that you are living in balance and that your mind is clear and focused. When you are in that state of mind, you're much less likely to make a mistake. If your life is filled with all kinds of calamity and drama and chaos and financial stress and financial insecurity, your focus is broken. And at that point, we become so needy, we could take on anyone as a partner. I mean, I mentioned in one of my earlier recordings that an investor came to me uh, offering to put in $2.5 million into the business. It was going to be cash, and obviously, I did my research and I found that that person was 18 years in prison related to drugs. Never had to give back any cash. Nobody found it. He had these suitcases of cash that he couldn't spend because he was being watched. And I guess the drama of being partners with him was, besides at the end of the transaction, I would have likely ended up buried in a desert somewhere. Just imagining how we would make handoffs of cash, like where I have to meet him in a garage and he slides an envelope underneath the car with 60,000 in cash. I'm just fantasizing here. When this person offered to be my partner, there wasn't even a doubt in my mind that there was no possible way that I was going to partner with this person. There was no possible way. Would I have resisted in my 20s? Probably, probably. I would have resisted because some of my dad's friends did stuff like that and they ended up in jail. My father had a friend who was on house arrest. He was in the same art and antiques business that we were in, not to mention any names, of course. Nice enough guy, but he had a customer that started buying art from him. And then the customer tempted him by saying, "Can you make an invoice for a larger amount? I'll give you this cash, whatever. You can give me merchandise or whatever." However, they set up this shady transaction. This guy, my dad's friend, was actually laundering money for this guy, and he got busted. And he was lucky because, lucky as you could be, he only had, what is it, like 36 months of house arrest. He had to wear that house arrest shackle around his ankle. But certainly, just by seeing that in front of my eyes, and also because I was a moral guy, I was never really tempted to do that. So, in conclusion, keep your eyes open. Don't get to the point where you're desperate. And if you're going to eventually take on partners, write out that plan. What does it look like for you to take on partners? Write it out. Talk about it with your team. Talk about it with your advisors. Who do you talk to about the important decisions that you make in a business? It has to be a very big part of your daily conversations. Who could be our great partner? Who is our financial partner? And when you meet someone, all of that conversation, discussion, debate, writing, planning, that has to be in the foreground of how you make your decisions. You can't just act on your impulse. We do that early on when we're young. We do that when we're new entrepreneurs and we're going with the flow. And everyone could tell a story about an uncle who always lived by the seat of his pants and was very successful in business. But more likely, most of us will not do well not being more calculated than that. So I wish you the best of luck.